How was the experience of working with Tony Lee and Stas in the artistic concept and narrative of the Mandrake Project?
Well, Tony Lee and Stas have been absolutely amazing. I started working with Tony Lee because the artistic concept of Mandrake, if you like, or well, the story and the characters, and that's basically my story. So I went to Z2 Comics and they introduced me to Tony Lee, and we got on great. And I realized that, you know, I've never written comic script before. I've written stories, I've written books, I've written screenplays, but comic script is something different. And Tony and I get on great. So we are well on the way to script number 3 for episode 3 at the moment. Obviously looking at which artists to get. Tony was the guy that suggested Stas Johnson. And as soon as I saw his stuff, I was like, this guy's brilliant. So that's how Stas and Tony and myself got together. And in fact, we have another artist on board now, Peter Kowalski, who is doing a lot of every time we do a flashback or a scene in a different time period or something, then Peter will be looking after those duties. And of course we have Bill, I keep saying his name wrong, I guess, but Bill Sinkiewicz on doing the cover art, which is just amazing, so it's a great team.
On your solo albums, you usually write songs in partnership, first with Yannick, then with Alex Dickinson, and since Balls to Picasso with Roy C. On this new album, you got almost the entire band from the previous album, Tyranny of Souls. These are two rare things among solo artists, and I think it's a good thing to treat it like a band. How important it is to you to work as a team on a solo album, whether in songwriting or having the same team from the previous album?
Well, I always, even though it's called a solo album, for me, it's always a band. So I treat it like, I'm in a band for my solo record. I mean, we're taking a band on tour, and we are going to be a band and do things that we do. We're going to hang out and just, have fun and play chess. I don't know.
Almost 20 years have passed since Tyranny of Souls. What do you feel has changed personally when you rediscover solo music composition after so long?
Well, I certainly didn't feel the need to go and just reproduce stuff I'd done in my past, because a lot of it, I think I'm very proud of all of it, but some bits of it in particular, something like Chemical Wedding is obviously a highlight. Tyranny of Souls was an album that was it was unfortunate that we did that album. We had really nowhere to put it, as it were, because I was so busy with Maiden, which was fine. But now we've got some space, and back in 2014, I had really quite a few ideas, so I presented them, and the idea was that there would be a story running through the album. As it turns out, there's a story running through the comic, which is a 3-year project, a kind of a separate issue from the album. But the album itself has become a musical story, not a literal story.
Understanding that the Mandrake Project isn't just an album, that it's a multi-dimensional project intertwined in music and graphic storytelling, Dr. Necropolis and Professor Lazarus represent opposing forces within the storyline, each with their own motivations and visions for the future. What inspired the dynamic between these characters? And if you can discuss if there's any particular character or element of them that resonates with you personally.
Oh, there's characters, the characters in the movie. Sorry, in the movie. I wish it was a movie. Maybe one day.
That will be cool.
Yeah, but No, of course, I I take elements from situations in my life, from people I've met, from people I've encountered, and things like that. And I take them and I import them into the motivations of characters, and I try and make the motivations of the characters fit the problems or the trials or the issues that they've had when they were brought up, their upbringing, things that happened to them, and sometimes just some people are just basically not very nice, you know. So all of those things go into the pot. But yes, I mean, I you know, I write from I write from people that I have met or know, or people that maybe I haven't necessarily met them, but you know, I've seen plenty of documentaries about them on TV. You know,
As a creator, what do you feel that you can explore with your music that's different that what you have presented, you know, throughout all your musical trajectory?
well, I mean, every time you write a new album, it's like you're giving you're giving birth to something with a personality and something with a little bit of individual soul. It's not something that's just thrown together. I mean, probably some people do that, but not me. But for me, it's a really important event. I mean, this one has been nearly 20 years before it's finally been released. And so, you know, for me, it's just about making the songs uh, different without trying too hard, authentic, you know, without having to go around telling lies and pretending you're something that you're not in the music. You know, the storytelling in the songs should be represented by the music that plays it, if you see what I mean. So there are some cool stories in this record, and that's why every track is different. Different in terms of it's slightly different in terms of interpretation and style. And there are things on the record that, you know, frankly, I mean, you know, if I was, let's say, and this is a question that somebody's probably going to ask, so we get it out of the way now. um, that, you know, what's different about you doing your solo stuff to doing stuff with Iron Maiden, and the difference is that, you know, it's not Iron Maiden. When you're doing Iron Maiden, you're, you know, really conscious that you have a, you know, a style to respect and a legacy and a history and everything. But all I have to respect with my solo stuff is the authenticity of the voice, in terms of the song and the way it's presented. So, I mean, an example, for example, is a song like Resurrection Men, which I don't know if people have heard the record yet, but, you know, I mean, it sounds like the beginning of a sort of like Quentin Tarantino movie or Morricone or something else like that. And people pick up on that. And I say, well, yeah, well, there's an example where I can join, you know, I can put Ennio Morricone and a bit of, you know, a bit of that sort of spaghetti Western vibe going into like a sort of a Hawkwind type riff, going into this mega sort of like bass Geezer Butler thing that Roy invented in the middle of it. So those sorts of, you know, mashups are things that I can do as a solo artist.
Back in 2008, you wrote your first screenplay for a film, The Chemical Wedding. Do you have any story behind it that you would like to share? And at some point, will you like to write another film?
No, there's if anybody wants to write my my screenplay, there's another couple sitting around at the moment, you know, along with everybody else that's ever created anything. So no, I mean, Chemical Wedding was a long time coming, and I mean, we made that film with we made that budget with a film of with a budget. We made that film, sorry, with a budget of like, I don't know, I can't remember what it was, but let's call it X. And in actual fact, we only had half of X to make the film with. So I had to make a lot of compromises in terms of the, I mean, it was proper low budget filmmaking. But, you know, it was, you know, there were some bits of it which I thought were great. Other bits, you know, could have been improved on. But it's a quirky, kind of interesting film if you get it. It was originally going to be a period piece about the life of Aleister Crowley, but we had no budget to do period. So I had 600 pages of script about the life of Aleister Crowley that I basically had to throw away and start again. So The Chemical Wedding, the story, came about when we have to bring back Aleister Crowley in the present day for 3 days and say, what does he get up to? Well, that's a whole new story. So we changed the title from, it was going to be called The Number of the Beast, which of course is what Crowley called himself, the Beast 666. We changed the title to The Chemical Wedding because by that time I already had the album out, and I thought that the title track of the album would make a great opening title scene for the movie as well. There you go. It's a bit more than I intended to say, but there you are.
As the concept of the album is full of details and a very interesting story, do you plan to bring those details to the stage with videos or special scenography? And how it's been the chemistry inside the band during the rehearsal so far?
Well, the chemistry inside the band for rehearsals, I can't tell you about that yet because we haven't started. But I mean, I know everybody, and I've played live on stage with Tanya, obviously in South America a lot. So people will have seen me on stage with Tanya. They know what she does. They know obviously with a classical thing, so that's a little bit different to a rock and roll thing. But yeah, we're going to have some screens, we're going to have some videos, but we're not going to have people coming on trying to be actors and stuff like that. It's not that type of record. And of course, we'll be doing a lot of stuff from Accident at Birth and from Chemical Wedding, because I think those are things that, I have to play those things because people haven't heard them for 20 something years. Some people have never heard them. So this is going to be a bit of a celebration. I would expect probably, maybe 4 songs off the new album, and the rest will all be from, everything from Balls to Picasso. And of course, we're going to have to play Tears of the Dragon.
What it was like to premiere Afterglow of Ragnarok in Sao Paulo's Comic Con. Can we expect surprises in the concerts in Brazil?
Sorry, what was the last bit? Something about the prices?
Oh, surprises that
surprises. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry,
don't worry.
Sorry. No. Well, no, I'm not going to suddenly go, hey, here's a new album that you didn't even know I'd made. No, one's enough for now. But no, I mean, Brazil, the great thing is just going to be there. Is just going to be there on stage in Brazil. It's going to be fantastic with this band. It's an incredible band. I mean, and we're going to have we've got a lot of stuff that we did for the 2 videos for Rain on the Graves and Ragnarok. We've got a lot of special effects stuff we did there that we can put, on the screens. But I'm not going to be using the screens as some kind of choreographed backdrop. We're not playing to a click track. This is not like this is not going to be what you would call a modern show in which the musicians are puppets and there's a computer in the background playing everything. This is all going to be analog, really kind of authentic playing from people. And, I want us to jam. I want us to jam like it's 1972.
Nowadays, we live in a world where identity and the notions of truth and reality are in crisis. How do you relate to that? And how will you define what Bruce Dickinson and his music are after so many years?
Well, I mean, on the first part about, truth and reality and what's real, what's not real, what's fake and what's imaginary. I think we all know that the internet and now AI is capable of telling some monumental lies about reality, the state of the world and everything. So there's not a whole lot I could do about that. But certainly with the comic, I can explore the idea of what goes on in the depths of people's subconscious and what goes on in the dark recesses of their minds. and possibly in other worlds as well. So that's one thing. In terms of what we bring, what we bring to the stage, in terms of like some kind of reality. I mean, the reality is it's the music, man. That's it. I mean, that's the reality. It's like, you know, 6 people standing there on stage doing it, you know.
Vocally, how did you face the recording of a new album? Was it a challenge?
Well, it's only it was only a challenge in respect of just trying to do the right thing for the songs. I mean, certainly the singing part of it is just it's a natural thing. It's either going to happen or it's not going to happen, you know. And if it's not happening right, then you either have to change it or give up or have a day off or something like that, you know. So, but I I work quite quickly when I actually do a vocal, when I get down to it. I mean, it's usually it takes you know, in the studio it takes a day, you know. Sometimes I do 2 in one day, but usually it's like, you know, I do like one day per track. But some of the some of the songs on the album go back a long way. They go back like almost 25 years. So again, so I had tracks that where we had a great vocal that was done as a demo, and it was incomplete. So I had to copy, not copy exactly, but I had to complete the puzzle of the song 20 years later. So it was quite cool actually, because it was like, wow, voice doesn't sound that different 20 years down the track. That's not bad.
As a historian, teacher, and a musician, how do you analyze the substantial changes that the music industry has undergone in recent years, and in which many genres have had to transform in order to remain?
Well, I mean, there's the way that the music industry has, on the one hand, it's done 2 things. On the one hand, if you're an artist, it's contracted, as in it's shrunk in terms of the amount of you know, the amount of money you get paid for your art, unless you are some massive social media thing or whatever it is, you know, or unless you're a DJ who turns up with a memory stick and gets paid, you know, 5 times what a band gets paid, you know, and they have to split it like 8 ways, and he just turns up with his memory stick and, you know, pretends he's doing something and goes away with a huge amount of money. So the world has gone on its ass from that perspective. And there's not a lot that any one individual can do about that. You just have to work with the way the world is, you know. So I have no desire whatsoever to be a DJ. I'm a singer. I'm a musician. I have bands and people like that, and they all have to make a living playing with me. So I do the best I can to make sure that everybody's happy, everybody's making a living, and we can go out and play great music. In terms of the way that records are sold, well, records, you know, downloads, things like that. I think that you know, I think it's a lose situation for everybody. I mean, you have all the things like Spotify and stuff like that, who are basically ripping off musicians by paying them next to nothing for playing their work. And still they can't make money. So they're not making money. The musicians aren't getting paid. New bands can hardly afford to start up, but they do. Why? Because they love what they do. It's that drives them. It's that motivates them. So you know, if the streaming services could manage to actually pay people properly for when people listen, which probably means that people listening have to pay more, which you know, I frankly don't object to. And I don't think probably most listeners would. Maybe less people would listen, but it would be people who care, not people who just do it because it's cheap.
Relationship have both the album and comic? Are they independent one from another? I think you already spoken a little bit about that, but if you
Yeah.
can, tell us more about it.
Yeah, I mean, so so the comic kind of came out of the album in 2014, but then in the intervening 7 years took on a life completely of its own. So originally it was going to be one comic of like 20 pages, and the album was going to tell a story that was to do with the comic in 2014. But as I developed the story and the characters, I realized that you couldn't link the one with the other so directly, because it was very restrictive for the album, which was sounding amazing. And the comic would grown to being a 3-year project. So what I would say, so there are links. There are some songs that do have references to stuff that goes on in the comic, and there's stuff in the comic which will reference not just this album but other albums that I've done in the past, because I can steal dialogue from myself and drop it in there, which people will recognize and go, oh, hang on a minute, that's a line from, I don't know, wherever, Chemical Wedding or Accident at Birth or something. But I mean, Watchmen does that all the time with various media things throughout its 12 episodes. But so the relationship, I would say, between the two of them now, yeah, it's like you walk into a forest and there's a big tree, and one says the album, and next to it is another big tree and it says the comic, and they are freestanding. They're not leaning on each other. If you chopped one down, the other one would still stay upright, but they are linked, and the bit you can't see is where the roots grow and they tangle up with each other. That's the link. That's the analogy that I would use, the picture, because I think in pictures because I'm dumb.